The potentialities of literature in pedagogical context represent a dual challenge in respect of how to teach literature and how literature can support learning activities. However, before adopting literature as a pedagogical resource, and even before speaking about how to teach literature, we need a sort of process of formalization that make literature an officially literary expression and, mostly, a subject included in national curricula. Unfortunately, official formalization by the educational system has not yet come about. Indeed, in European schools and universities, it's rare to find courses on literature, and it's even more rare to find courses which adopt literature as a pedagogical resource. For this reason, I think that it remains important to develop and spread critical theories, to provide theoretical tools able to analyze, typify, evaluate digital literary expression, to help to understand the aesthetic of literary works, and so to develop a common taste, a common aesthetic taste, that is the condition sine qua non. It's not possible to establish a canon. That, again, in turn, it needed to create a new notion of literariness, and in turn, again, it's needed for literature to be included in national curricula. Since ancient Greek time, the canon has performed an important educational function in formal educational context. For this reason, it represents what is considered normatively suitable to be taught. Belonging to the canon meant a guarantee of quality, according to George Landau. That's the reason why curriculum makers often select works belonging to an existing canon. Being the canon the result of the aesthetic taste of a specific time, according to Astrid Ansel, this taste produced the selection of seminal works worthy to be canonized. In this framework, the practice of selecting and collecting works is extremely important, because to ontologize new literary forms means to institutionalize a literary phenomenon. Being institutionalized means being recognized by the educational system, and so, in turn, being worthy to be included into national curricula. That's the way that European literature collection is following. That's to say, its central aim is to provide an essential tool to assist in formalized literature in Europe. With a process of formalization in progress, it's not only possible to speak about how to teach literature, but it also makes sense to speak how literature can be used as a pedagogical resource. Thinking about literature as a pedagogical resource raises some challenging questions. Among these, if it is possible to teach with and inside new media, according to Ciotti and Roncalli among the others, is it also possible to teach with and inside new media writing? Actually, new media can offer a very useful learning environment. New social-driven, like Second Life, can support learning activities. The example is Muvenation. Muvenation is an European project led by University of Macerata that has demonstrated how teaching and learning inside new social-driven help the learning activities, thanks to the affordances that are able to reconfigure the process of mediation with practical advantages for the learner. Thanks to all these features, it's possible to foster a kind of experiential learning that, according to Owen Strauss, takes place through experiential approaches related to the visual and kinesthetic sensory sphere. Clearly, the answer to the previous question is affirmative. If it is possible to teach with inside new media, yes, it is also possible to teach with inside new media writing. At least because the new media writing is based on new media itself to express its potentialities. There are much more reasons that corroborate this statement. Among these, let's see the common features between electronic learning environment and eLiterature itself. And these are the process of embodiment itself. You can find in the interactive fiction, for example, the concept of remediation that is typical of any media, the opportunity to become a digital narrative device, the active interaction with an immersive digital environment, as it can happen with the immersive interactive fiction as the work by Andy Campbell, the multisensorial involvement as it happens in the locative narrative, for example, and the emotional participation. Let's see a specific features of literature and eLiterature that help the learning process. These are the traditional cognitive support provided by the narrative, according to Louis Mink, and that the literature expressions seem to meet the emerging cognitive styles of new generations, according to Catherine Hales. Let's see some practical examples. English 101 by Michael Joyce, Victorian Web by George Landon, Cave by Robert Hoover, among the others. There are by J. Bolter, Lead a Hypertext Project by Astrid Hensley, and so forth. These projects have demonstrated how using new media writing in didactic context can stimulate cognitive processes using it in a proper framework, in a proper pedagogical framework, can support learning processes, improving intrinsic motivation and deep learning. These pedagogical potentialities of electronic literature in didactic contexts have also been confirmed by the data collected with the literature survey. Indeed, at the question, can literature stimulate effective cognitive processes? The 46% answered yes, the 54% sometimes, and please note that nobody answered no. The most common reason for the affirmative answers was about the different cognitive stimuli eLiterature provides. It demands the user to adopt different capacities together, mixed in an unusual way. It offers enactive, perceptive experiences previously unthinkable. It merges semiotic systems in ways previously not possible, fostering new connections between ideas and emotions. It stimulates the decision-making that traditional linear reading processes usually do not provide, fostering a process of deep thinking. And it offers new reading modalities, not traditionally structured, providing knowledge configuration more similar to the way in which the human mind works, according to Vannevar Bush. And finally, it offers appealing modalities for the knowledge-building process, taking advantage of the artistic and interactive features. Clearly, to use literature as a pedagogical resource demands the proper pedagogical framework. In this respect, the traditional concept of constructivism could be appropriate. Specifically, the socio-constructivism considers the learning as an active process of knowledge building based on the concept of active learner, on a personal autopoietic process of knowledge building, on the interaction of the learner with the social context, on the scaffolding function of the educator, and on the concept of learning activity as a temporary and subjective. According to this widespread pedagogical theory, the knowledge is not acquired but built. The knowledge configuration, being personal, autopoietic, and social related, it results subjective, temporary, and easier to produce. However, even in this socio-constructivism, the implicit attention remains on the object of learning, or rather on the conceptual artifact the learner acquires through the process of knowledge building. Let's see the process. The learner goes through the process of knowledge building to build the conceptual artifact, and so to acquire the knowledge object. On the other hand, the educator holds the function of scaffolding to help the learner to develop disciplinary competencies to acquire the final knowledge object. So, the socio-constructivism clearly stresses the importance of the process of knowledge building, but it longs for the knowledge object, which virtually remains the central aim, even though not clearly admitted. Clearly, we need an updated theory, considering that nowadays the process of knowledge building produces each time a different conceptual artifact. Let's see an example. We consider Wikipedia. Wikipedia, as we know, is both a non-fiction collaborative digital writing and a didactic tool. Well, the knowledge in Wikipedia is always in motion, always changeable, and produces a huge quantity of different knowledge configurations. In this great educational resource, the user, to use it properly, has to have the abilities to configure this knowledge resource according to his own needs. The knowledge object that the user, the learner, the reader builds is as efficient as his ability to configure the building process. And the conceptual artifact has often some common and general aspects, but it is always different and changeable, exactly as it occurs as the knowledge representation of the most of the literature works. If we aim to use eLiterature in pedagogical context, perhaps the post-constructivism is a more updated theory to take into account. Indeed, according to Richard Lesh and Helen Dorr, this variant of the traditional constructivism underlines the importance of the process over the object, sometimes even to the detriment of the knowledge object itself. It shifts the real attention from the knowledge built to the action of building, with less concern with the final knowledge object. And it puts the focus on the process, on the motion, on the bridges between knowledge and learner. In this respect, it's not a coincidence that the post-constructivism has many analogies with the movement of difference by Jacques Derrida and the procedural literary system by Siegfried Schmidt. If we consider that the digital medium is an important part of the aesthetic of the literature works, and that the medium is typified by the action of a remediation between the message and the addressee, and if we consider the dynamic ergodic interaction between human beings and machines that typify the literature works, is a sort of cognitive movement between digital and analogic cognizers, according to Catherine Hales. And if we consider that literature works are often typified by what Italo Calvino used to define the combinatory process, and what Umberto Eco calls openness of a literary works, a pedagogical framework based on the concept of movement, it could be very appropriate for the pedagogy of electronic literature. Adopting literature in didactic context also demands an appropriate methodology and a suitable environment in which electronic literature can be taught, learned, and used as a resource. In this respect, if the main features of literature are the digital medium used as an aesthetical device, the hybridity of the semiotic system, the ergodicity of the interaction, the modularity of its expressions, well, e-learning seems a good solution to teach with and inside the new media writing. Let's see some feature of e-learning environment, well, of e-learning practices. These practices are based on a constructive pedagogical framework. They use digital media and digital environment to foster learning activities. And they adopt learning management systems characterized by digitality, hypermediality, modularity, and active interaction. Following this path, the narrative learning environment represents a good example of the synergy that can be established between literary forms in digital environments and e-learning methodologies, providing to the former the advantage of having at their disposal a proper platform to be taught and learned, and to the latter it provides the possibility of exploiting the added value offered by the educative potential of the arts. Indeed, according to Luis Mink again, the educational potentialities of the arts can be found in the aesthetical or emotional satisfaction, and according to Steves, in their ability to shock and inspire, to change vision, ideas and feeling, and according to Astrid Ansley, in their ability to foster consciousness in the reader through cognitive stimuli and aesthetic effects. In this framework, many possibilities can be explored, both to teach literature and to use it as a pedagogical resource. Let's see the first case, that's say teaching literature. Well, we can do that by employing e-learning methodologies as the blended learning and the social cooperation, and e-learning environments as, for example, Moodle. We can use these methodologies to develop literature courses that combine traditional teaching practices as classroom learning and enhanced one as online and mobile learning. Well, this kind of approach could bring many advantages in teaching digital literature, considering as the learning methodologies and the literature expression have been conceived to exploit the possibility provided by digital technologies. In the second case, that's to say using the literature as a pedagogical resource, well, e-learning methodologies could take advantage of the educational potentialities provided by digital literary expressions, and so gaining a new didactic tool capable of supporting learning activities through its digital, creative and aesthetical features.